in a part of the world consumed by war. One nation's warriors stand apart.
We move toward the enemy, we attack, we initiate the combat.
Every day is a desperate fight for survival. Surrender is never an option.
It's countries that surrendered by enemies that constantly in fighting.
The bitter experience of deadly combat has forged Israel's Commandos into the most honed fighting force on the planet. The Israel Defense Force has over 40 elite units. The message is simple. Don't mess with the IDF. It's time to go ballistic. Israeli commandos are long on experience. In combat virtually every day for 7 decades, they are all action and no talk.
That's the way we do things, very instinctively and very aggressively.
Born during the struggle for statehood, Israeli elite strike forces are in the DNA of the nation. They pulled off daring revenge strikes after the Munich massacre, and then perfected the art of hostage rescue at Entebbe Airport.
The state was born in war and is sustained by the threat of war. Having forces that can attack behind enemy lines is vitally important.
Today's Israeli commandos are the most specialized fighting elites in the world. 40 units, united by one simple philosophy: attack.
Anybody who opposes Israel is aware that these people may strike, and it may come in the most unconventional way.
The Israeli Commando has an incredible range of weapons for an incredible range of strike missions. From the combat-proven Uzi submachine gun family to the latest space-age Tavor assault rifle, the Israeli Commando is always one technological step ahead of his enemies. Now, Weaponology will go back through Israeli history to find out how a struggle for freedom, the fight against international terrorism, and brutal hand-to-hand fighting came together to make the Israeli Commando the most battle-hardened warrior in the world. Israel is a commando nation. Surrounded by enemies and always outnumbered, the whole nation lives under constant siege.
Israel is a state which has owed its existence to its military excellence.
It was no different at the beginning. In the 1940s, Jewish settlers fought for their own homeland in the Middle East. The Palmach were the spearhead.
It was decided that this organization needs a unit which is like a commando. Like Palmach in Hebrew means striking forces.
The Palmach in Israeli history have an almost mythical quality. They're seen as being the cradle in many ways of Jewish society.
An unorthodox British officer named Ord Wingate was behind the Palmach's techniques.
Ord Wingate was a man with great, if unconventional, military talents, who he put at the disposal of the Jews when there was no state of Israel.
Wingate's philosophy was simple: attack. He taught the black arts of commando warfare. Sabotage and hit and run were his stock in trade.
The Palmach trained to attack even when you are defending. In other words, try to fight back.
The Palmach used whatever weapons they could find. Arms flooded in from war-torn Europe. One submachine gun stands out.
What we have here is very possibly the most historic submachine gun ever made, the Mark II Sten, or the Sten. It's more or less made up of scrap from a plumber shop.
The rugged and simple mechanism could cope with the sand and dust of the Middle East. It was easy to fire, and the small compact parts made it the weapon of choice.
It had been a simple, easy gun to train Jewish settlers on. So it's a gun kind of tailor-made for its insurgencies or resistance movements.
It was easy to conceal because you will take it apart and they could put it also under their clothes and it would completely vanish. Nobody would see.
Easily concealed, compact, and simple to operate. It does the job.
Got a little bit of scatter. It's still an acceptable group, but it's a little bit to the right side of the target. For as simple of a weapon it was, very controllable, very, very effective.
The Palmach helped win a Jewish homeland in 1948. For the young state and its military elite, self-sufficiency was everything. A top priority, replacing the Sten with their own submachine gun. In that first year of nationhood, a young Palmach warrior by the name of Uziel Gal developed an icon of popular culture, the Uzi.
Designed by the Israelis with the basis of we're going to take some of the best features of existing submachine gun designs that are available.
In concept, this commando weapon was inspired by the rugged and concealable Sten. But in design, it more closely resembles a family of submachine guns made in Czechoslovakia.
They copied from the Czech CZ-2325 series of submachine guns, a design in which the bolt actually telescopes over the barrel.
The bolt and the barrel sit one on top of the other. This reduces the overall length of the gun. Another advantage, by placing the moving parts and weight over the center balance point of the weapon, it becomes easier to handle.
By putting the mass in the middle, balance-wise, when the gun cycles, it has less rearward thump. It's a very stable open-bolt submachine gun.
The telescoping bolt design was unique to the Uzi and the CZ series. The compact but easy-to-handle Uzi. A weapon tailor-made for elite warriors on the attack.
Okay, let's try a little trigger time with the Uzi. Headshots. Let's go to full auto, or what we call the fun position, a series of bursts. fired semi-automatic for precision shots were some of these rounds I fired right here. So it's perfectly effective if you understand the technique.
The Uzi is so well balanced that a skilled soldier can, in theory, fire it one-handed, just like in the movies.
We all love Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we all remember him in the movie Terminator. People say, can you control the gun? Well, let's just see what you think, folks. Here we go. Can it be shot effectively with one hand? You know what you're doing. You can do a pretty good job.
Still, the one-handed firing technique is more suited to a movie lot than a battlefield.
32 rounds I fired with Mr. Schwarzenegger's technique. I shot at the head, and you can see of 32 rounds, I got a pretty good hit, but there are a lot of misses.
Mookie Betzer is a legendary Israeli commando with a love of Uziel Gal's compact killer. His judge, jury, and executioner. April 1973. Mookie and a team that included future Prime Minister Ehud Barak landed by boat in Beirut. Their mission: to eliminate PLO leaders believed to have ordered the massacre of Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Olympics. The unlikely couple had Uzis and grenades under tourist disguises.
Ehud Barak was dressed as a woman. We arrived at our targets. We waited until Ehud gave the word, when the two other units arrived at the doors of the other two targets. At the moment we got the word, we blasted the door, broke in, and killed Yasser Arafat's deputy, Yusuf Najal.
The mission achieved its targets, but remains controversial. What is not disputed is the ability of Israeli commandos to strike hard in the lair of the enemy.
The reputation of Israeli special forces today depends upon, obviously, the deeds of the past. Therefore, people are constantly aware that they may well get hit in some way that other states may not actually countenance, but Israel may feel is absolutely justified.
Israeli weaponologists developed smaller and more lethal versions of their classic firearm. Before the Beirut raid, Mookie's team had tried out a prototype. It wasn't quite there yet, but before long, the mini Uzi hit the streets.
This is the mini Uzi with a silencer. This is used in a special operation when you want to conceal the sound of the shooting.
Years on, and the Uzi family of submachine guns is still #1 with Israeli commandos. But when commandos attack in wide open spaces, they're going to need bigger bullets and more firepower. Israeli commandos are always on the attack. They need a firearm that combines accuracy, rate of fire, and hitting power with never-let-me-down reliability. Israeli weaponologists have left no stone unturned in the quest for the ultimate commando firearm. Mookie Betzer spent 22 years in the most elite units of the Israel Defense Force. including over a decade in the super-secret Sayeret Matkal. The Kalashnikov, or AK-47, was his weapon of choice. Mookie's faithful Klatch had been shipped to Egypt from Russia ahead of the Six-Day War in 1967. The Soviets supported the enemies of Israel in a proxy war against the U.S. When Israeli forces crushed the Egyptian army, they captured thousands of Kalashnikovs.
The first ones to receive those weapons were the special units, and all of the Sayeret Matkal was equipped with the Kalashnikov, a great weapon. It's accurate, it's reliable, and every soldier wants a powerful weapon like this.
Mookie's Kalashnikov proved its worth in the desperate fighting of the Yom Kippur War 6 years later. In October 1973, Syria and Egypt launched a surprise attack on Israel. Commando units were thrown into combat zones in an effort to turn the tide. Mookie and his unit of elite Sayeret Matkal fighters raced to defend Israel's borders at Naffa on the Golan Heights.
An officer identified 3 helicopters landing 2 kilometers to the north. We understood immediately that it was a commando unit coming to assault Naffa.
They rushed to meet the threat head-on. With the IDF attitude, attack is always the best form of defense.
We engaged them in a face-to-face combat over only a few meters. The firepower we applied on them meant that within 3 to 4 minutes we'd killed all the 40 Commando soldiers. Their commander was injured and we took him hostage.
Israeli counterattacks, spearheaded by elite units, dragged Israel back from the brink. The Yom Kippur War was over after 3 weeks of desperate fighting. The Russian-made Kalashnikov had proved its dominance on the battlefield. But the experience of Yom Kippur prompted soul-searching in Israel. Every branch of the military was reviewed and improvements demanded. The designers at Israel Military Industries took the best assault rifle in the world, the AK-47, and set about making it better.
Among the other things the Israelis did, they said, look, what can we do to make the shortcomings of the AK better?
The AK-47 is not an accurate weapon. The front and rear sights are placed very close together. Any error in lining up the sights is magnified. By simply moving the rear sight to the back of the rifle, the Israel update immediately became more accurate. The AK became the Galil.
How does the Galil compare to the original AK-47? Remember, this is the final development process in the Kalashnikov. It technically has much better sights. Going hot.
Ken and Larry are both former members of U.S. Special Operations. Both are awesome shots. Even over 100 yards. But the Galil should give Ken a slight edge.
Larry's AK-47 group is actually pretty good. Of course, Larry's an exceptional rifleman, but well-placed hits. With my Galil, shots a little bit more centered, and I would credit most of that to the aperture sighting system.
Israel Military Industries also designed folding and collapsible stocks, added bolt cutters, and even a bottle opener. A combat-proven firing mechanism with the latest gadgets attached. The super-accurate Galil.
Good grouping, right in the center of the target, very good accuracy.
Skip forward to the 80s and 90s. Israeli forces were sucked into street fighting in Lebanon and Gaza. So they asked IWI to come up with a new generation of weapon that combined the precision punch of their Galil and M16 rifles with the compact size of the Uzi.
They request a short and compact rifle.
A team of engineers under genius designer Zalman Shebs once again looked at the best the world had to offer. Their new design borrowed a British breakthrough. The radical bullpup design first appeared on the EM2 in 1951. The unique design allows a long barrel to be housed in a short rifle. The space-age Tavor and an even shorter micro Tavor were born.
The ball begins from here until here. So the ball is the same ball as in a regular assault rifle.
A long barrel makes for an accurate weapon. The Micro Tavor packs rifle accuracy into a submachine gun frame.
The Micro Tavor was developed together with our special forces. They gave us feedback on all kind of features of the weapon to be adapted to their needs.
Accuracy, rate of fire, reliability, and power. The Micro Tavor is the ultimate commando weapon for the 21st century. One type of mission has come to define the Israeli Commando. The awesome reputation of Israeli Special Forces was built on the daring hostage rescue missions of the 1970s.
Suddenly, everybody in the world knew all about Israeli Special Forces.
Israeli Commandos are the most specialized fighting force in the world. 40-plus units, each trained for a unique mission. Hostage rescue is the most complex of all strike missions.
Every mission needs expert. You have a doctor for eye, and you have a doctor for stomach, and you have a doctor for heart. And this is exactly what we find. We need elite units that train to do special missions.
Hostage takings are a fact of life in Israel. The rescue missions are the speciality of one unit. The Yaman.
Today, Yamam is recognized all over the world. It's a very professional unit. Over the years, they've developed tactics and techniques that everyone learns from today.
The Yaman cherry-picked some of the best Special Forces members and tactics. The Yaman's doctrine is attack. Their secret is practice.
The idea is to create controlled chaos. You have to be very fast and very accurate and not trigger happy. When you have hostages around, you can't just shoot thousands of bullets off, hundreds of bullets off, and, you know, hopefully killing only the terrorists. You have to hit the bus hard, fast. It's going to be very surgical.
The Yaman was created in 1988, and they only act within Israel's borders. Rewind to the airliner hijackings of the 1970s. Jobs for Israel's premier fighting elite, the super secret Sayeret Matkal.
Sayeret Matkal is a very special unit which has very secret and confidential objectives. In addition, it has one more objective of anti-terror warfare, hostage rescue.
Sayeret Matkal wrote the book on airline hijack rescue. The 1972 Sabina incident in Lod, Israel, was a perfect example. A team including future Prime Ministers Ehud Barak and Benjamin Netanyahu posed as airport technicians, sabotaged the plane, and overcame the hijackers. The strategy was copied all over the world. But the Entebbe hijack and rescue 4 years later broke all known rules.
The Entebbe raid is one of the great classic examples of the success of special forces.
On June 27, 1976, Palestinian and German terrorists demanding the release of Palestinian prisoners hijacked Air France Flight 139 from Tel Aviv to Paris. The terrorists flew the plane to Entebbe in Uganda. The hijackers released all the non-Jewish passengers. 104 hostages remained, including the crew. They were moved to the abandoned old terminal building. In Israel, the separation of Jew and non-Jew had chilling echoes of the death camp selections. The crisis became an Israeli matter, a job for the elite Sayeret Matkal. The Sayeret team immediately started planning a solution the only way they knew how: attack. Released hostages confirmed that Ugandan leader Idi Amin was colluding with the terrorists. A division of his best soldiers guarded the airport. A large commando force would be needed. But a large force would make the crucial element of surprise difficult to maintain.
The element of surprise is the key to the success of the mission, because the terrorist could pull the trigger in a split second and start killing hostages.
Mookie Betzer was put in charge of operational planning and would lead the break-in teams. By amazing coincidence, Mookie had trained Idi Amin's paratroopers 9 years earlier. He used his experience in Uganda to hatch a brilliant and daring plan. All he needed was a black Mercedes.
I knew that a Mercedes is used by high-ranking officers, ministers and Idi Amin. When a soldier sees a Mercedes, he salutes and lets the car go by. That is why I suggested that we take a Mercedes, and that's how we would keep the element of surprise.
The terrorists thought they were safe. They believed a large-scale commando raid launched 2,500 miles from Israel was the stuff of fantasy. But fantasy was about to become reality. The initial force of Sayeret Matkal fighters flew by Hercules into Entebbe Airport. They used the cover of complete darkness. Mookie and raid commander Yoni Netanyahu packed into the Mercedes with 9 other warriors.
We landed at midnight and immediately unloaded the Mercedes and the 2 Land Rovers.
The Mercedes team still had over a mile to travel to the old terminal where the hostages were being held. Things quickly began to go wrong. Halfway to the terminal, the Mercedes encountered a Ugandan guard. Yoni Netanyahu didn't wait to see if the disguise worked. He opened fire with his silenced pistol. The Ugandan soldier went down. The Commandos and the Land Rovers then opened fire with unsilenced Kalashnikovs.
At that moment, we lost the element of surprise. We were forced to launch the attack before we had got to our planned positions. We raced into the openings and in seconds we broke into the terminal.
Mookie's break-in teams quickly recovered their momentum.
In that break-in, we killed 4 terrorists in the main terminal hall in a matter of seconds. A second team eliminated terrorists in the rest quarters.
All the terrorists were killed. A single hostage was shot. But outside, tragedy had struck. Raid Commander Yoni Netanyahu had been hit by fire from the control tower.
I went outside and I saw that he was injured severely. A bullet had penetrated here in the chest. I called Shaul Mofaz and I told him, hit with the RPG and with your machine guns. They subdued the control tower.
3 more Hercules landed full of troops to secure the airport perimeter and organize the evacuation. 2 more hostages died during the escape. As a parting shot, the Commandos destroyed Amin's 11 MiGs with RPGs and FN MAG machine guns.
It was a remarkable feat, which is still used as a classic example of what you can achieve if you have really well-trained people with a robust plan who move fast and confuse the enemy.
The success of the raid was a spectacular warning to anyone thinking of colluding with terrorists against Israel.
If before Entebbe people knew about special forces in Israel, it was only as a subplot in the news. Suddenly, for the first time, everybody in the world knew all about the capability of Israeli special forces.
Entebbe was a success because Israeli forces delivered awesome firepower to an enemy before he knew what hit him. But sometimes an elite soldier has to fall back on more primitive methods. When you've been hit by Israeli commandos, you stay hit. Training and selection for Israeli commando units is all about finding the nation's best strike warriors. Recruits are drawn from the entire population. Everybody in Israel does national service. 3 years for boys and a year and a half for girls.
Although we are a small country, we have very talented people and we have compulsory conscription. Special forces pick the best from that huge pool.
The elite units look for candidates with the potential to be the best. The physical and mental standards are extremely high. The best specimens are discovered on a series of grueling hikes with heavy packs. The hardest is an incredible 85-mile, 120-kilometer ordeal. It's as much a test of character as physical strength.
Some of the people go until the limits and then they faint. And sometimes we'll say, well, this is a good guy. Because he's going to go until, past his limits and he can't do any more.
If you finish, you feel an immense satisfaction for many years to come. Then if you have all of a sudden a mission of 40 kilometers, you think, what's 40 kilometers? It's nothing. I have done 120 kilometers.
But the most brutal part of the Special Forces training is unarmed combat. Mookie Betzer always had to toughen up fresh recruits.
I lined up the recruits in rows and I told everyone to take turns hitting each other. Whoever didn't hit hard enough, I immediately hit them with a hard blow. And that's how they learned to hit properly. At one point, I told one of the soldiers to slap me hard. He was afraid, because I was an officer. He slapped me timidly. I smacked him to the ground. Then he got angry. He got back up and hit me hard.
That soldier learned to fight the hard way.
The ideal warrior for us will be someone who has the capacity for violence. You'd be looking for a violent person. You'd be looking for someone who can control his violence, his feelings.
The Israeli military have their own unique systems of hand-to-hand combat. These date back to the birth of the nation. A young Palmak warrior called Emmy Lichtenfeld developed his own practical combat system. The system was called Krav Maga. It became the basis for all Israel Defense Forces hand-to-hand fighting.
Emil Lichtenfeld was a genius. He came from Slovakia to Israel, and he came from the background of wrestling and boxing. He put together, to the best of his knowledge, the techniques that are the traditional Krav Maga.
Krav means fight, Maga means contact. And it's a term that was created to describe all the hand-to-hand combat techniques for military use.
And Krav Maga, attack is the best form of defense. Kicking, punching, butting, and gouging. Nothing is too brutal.
Straightforward, no nonsense. You can do Kung Fu, but you need years and years and years of training to become, shall we say, efficient in it. And Krav Maga, you can be taught in a short period how to defend yourself.
Guns, knives, chairs, baseball bats. Anything can be used as a weapon.
The main idea is that we always assume that the other person is much bigger and stronger than you. Adrenaline is rushing, your legs are shaking, and you have to work from that angle.
Moni Isaac is a martial arts champion and the founder of a form of Krav Maga created specially for Commandos.
1973, after Yom Kippur War, I was in elite commando unit that was basically most of the members got killed. And I was chosen to continue the work on the development of the Krav Maga to the elite units.
The Israel Defense Force wanted a review of Krav Maga as part of the shakeup after the near disaster of Yom Kippur. Moni's martial arts expertise and recent commando combat experience made him the perfect candidate. He teamed up with the godfather of Krav Maga, Emmy Lichtenfeld.
We experiment with the Krav Maga techniques, but with some other techniques that I knew because I came from a very rich background of jiu-jitsu and judo. I was a champion of Israel many times. And I understood the biomechanic of the move, and I started to develop my own techniques.
Moni stripped back Krav Maga principles even further for Commandos.
The main key when somebody puts a gun to the side of your head is to be able to move out of the line of fire. I'm using the blade of my hand, keeping my hand very close to my ear, and use the blade of my head to push the gun out of the line of fire. At that stage, this hand is trapping the gun, this hand trapping the wrist. The gun is going to be twisting to him with 20% power. My hands that holding the wrist going to pull with 80% power. And I'll have the gun in my hand.
Commando Krav Maga is the essence of Israeli commando fighting principles. Hit, and hit hard. Knock your enemy off balance, and then break contact.
Engage as fast as possible and disengage immediately. If you stay there and try to punish the attacker, he can pull a knife all of a sudden. I'm blocking it from the inside and now holding the hand very close to the knife. From this position, I'm going to pull up here and turning the hand down. As I'm doing that, I'm locking my hands together. And he's going to pull, for sure. He's leaving the knife in my hand. And I have in my hand the knife.
The Israeli Commando has a combination of brutal training and the best firepower in the world. But he will always be at a numerical disadvantage.
What they need to do with such a large number of potential enemies and such a small army is to have always technology rather than manpower to rely upon.
The pressure is always on Israeli weaponologists to stay ahead of the game.
Try always not to be exposed to the direct enemy fire.
The compact and lethal Uzi. The futuristic Micro Tavor. The light but powerful Negev light machine gun. Israeli commandos always have the best military hardware.
Always we are looking some advantage over our enemies. We have to be one step ahead.
But the IDF knows that the most valuable weapon in their arsenal is the elite warrior. What they lack in numbers, they must make up for in excellence.
We have to survive. We are few against a lot. We need every chance that we can get to reduce from our side people that will be wounded or will be killed.
The best way to keep the warrior alive is to keep them out of the line of fire. Viper, a remote control hunter. At only 12 inches, he's small enough to avoid detection and can be carried by the Commando. Viper may look like a toy, but he packs an all-seeing camera, acoustic sensors, and even a mini Uzi. Then there's spy drones, perfect for missions far from home. Hermes and Skylark can take snapshots of an entire battlefield. The challenge for weaponologists is to keep the soldier out of the line of fire without reducing his ability to kill. Corner shot is a unique solution to this riddle. Genius designer Amos Golan has drawn on his experience as a senior commander in Israeli counter-terror units. He designed Corner Shot to turn obstacles into allies.
So I was thinking that maybe I will be able to use corner to protect ourselves, to hide the body, and then I'll be able to aim to the right, or straight, or to the left, and to do it in a way that it will work very fast.
Corner Shot is a camera, video screen, and trigger pulling mechanism that allows the soldier to see and shoot around corners.
With the monitor, I can search inside the room. I can look to the enemy. I see one. Continue searching. I'm in a safe position. And then keep searching. Keep looking for the enemy. Get inside. You want to shoot again?
Other commandos in the squad, not armed with corner shot, can share the view.
So the idea that you will be able to get the information from the camera and to send it from here to the back of the soldier. By looking here, you can see exactly who is the enemy, who is the bad guy, the one that have a yellow jacket, the one that have the Carl Gustav, the one that have a really black hair.
Corner shot fires in pistol and assault rifle versions for a bigger punch. But Amos didn't stop there.
We have a big surprise to somebody that really deserves it. And we have the 40mm granate launcher, and you are using it exactly as the corner shot. When you see an enemy, you don't have to do like this and to face exactly to this direction. You can do it with this way. And if the street is under heavy fire and there is an armored vehicle, you can give a nice answer with this device in the urban area.
The Israeli commando is always outnumbered and always surrounded. But with the best military tech and a willingness to attack, he's a match for any enemy.
This is part of the Israeli way of doing things. We point and we shoot very instinctively and very aggressively. And it must be something that exists maybe in our souls and our spirits.
Hostage rescue, covert hits, K9 attack. There's an elite strike squad for any mission. Drawn together, the branches on their family tree reflect their unique genesis. Halmac resistance fighters, state-of-the-art submachine guns, and brutal hand-to-hand combat come together to form the most battle-hardened military elite in the world. The Israeli Commando.